Good morning, Carmel Catholic. I'm Nathan Dever-Pauly. It's 8:03. Let's discuss some current events. The coastal Northern California town of Seaside hosted a celebrity visitor Wednesday. Police there pulled out all the stops, even having baseball legend Reggie Jackson on hand to swear in DJ Daniel as an honorary officer with the city's department. Daniel grabbed national headlines last month at President Donald Trump's State of the Union address. The 13-year-old has been fighting brain cancer for 7 years. Since then, he's visited hundreds of law enforcement agencies. Most of them made him an honorary chief. This is Daniel's first visit to California, and he's inspiring officers there as he seems to do everywhere he goes. Take a look at what this sweet message has to say.
Stay out of trouble, believe in God, stop being mean to people, be kind, and live a great life.
We all go through things in life, and sometimes we get frustrated, we get angry, we start asking, why is this happening to me? And then you look at a situation with a young man who has brain cancer, who has new tumors coming in, and you'd never know just by looking at him. He's just positive and loving. He's taught me to be, above all, spread love.
Believe it or not, we're on the downhill slope of the school year, and students may have a lot on their plates, from practices and performances to end-of-the-year work. But as the semester starts to wind down, tension tends to shoot up, and sometimes anxiety can look different in children and teens than it does in adults. In today's Health Minute, Mandy Gaither has more on the surprising signs of academic anxiety. CNN went more in depth with the situation with a live interview with licensed therapist Jody Baumstein.
From end-of-semester projects to finals, tests, and quizzes, this time of year can feel a little overwhelming.
For a lot of kids, it can feel immensely stressful.
Licensed therapist Jody Baumstein with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta says academic anxiety can have some surprising signs in students. They may start to procrastinate in the morning, try to miss the bus. They may skip class, talk back to teachers, or they may not be able to complete assignments. Baumstein says these signs may seem like behavioral issues, but that's not always the case.
We really want to get curious about what they're communicating and make sure we're getting to the root, because for some kids, it's actually anxiety.
While it's natural for parents to want to fix everything for their child, Baumstein says that doesn't teach them how to cope with anxiety on their own. Instead, she suggests asking what you can do to help support them, and if the child is up for it, telling the child ways that you overcame anxiety in your life. Last week, the Florida State community was shattered after a gunman opened fire on campus, killing 2 and wounding several others. On Wednesday, the students marched to the state capitol to call for gun reform legislation. The protest was led by the group of students demanding action, and dozens of students joined the effort, including some who say they are still scared following last Thursday's shooting. The students say they want to see gun laws reevaluated, including with mental health evaluations. They also spoke with lawmakers about their call for gun law reform. That's all for current events. I'm Nathan Dever-Pauly. Next up is AJ Escamilla with a robotics interview.
Welcome back, Carmel Catholic. I'm here sitting down with the Nyan robotics team to talk about their competition last week at Worlds. First things first, Ainsley. I know it takes a lot to be ready for any meet, as I imagine it takes a lot more to be ready for Worlds, but what all, besides the robot, do you guys need to bring with you to be ready for a successful meet in Houston?
Yeah, so we brought lots of tools, our presentation pit setup, and lots of food also.
So what does the presentation pit setup look like?
So it's just a display with, it's like a summary of what we've done this year and just like showing off like our logo, our team. Yeah.
All right, awesome, sick. All right, and Sansi, how did you guys get the robot to Houston? I mean, I imagine it's hard to fly it down there.
Yeah, so we didn't fly it in the end. We actually had a parent and a grandparent who were able to drive a U-Haul down with all of our stuff for our pit and display and the robot itself.
All right, love that. All right, and then Santiago, how did your matches look?
Yeah, so our matches looked pretty difficult in the beginning, but as the games went on, our matches got easier. Certain teams broke and certain teams did better than they should have.
All right, sounds good. And then Darren, to those unfamiliar, how many teams or even like countries compete at the World Competition?
Yeah, so there's about 256 other teams there across 60 countries about, and those teams were split across 4 divisions.
All right, and then towards the final matches, is there like a sort of, like, is there a specific region where more people are likely to be in the finals? Like a certain country that has more?
Well, the United States is always strong, but also Romania. Romania is particularly strong in robotics. Their government heavily incentivizes those teams, so
Okay.
that region's generally strong.
All right, that's interesting. That's cool. And then how does the tournament work? There's a ton of teams. How do you get everybody to compete?
Yeah, so like I said, there's 256 teams divided across 4 divisions, and the entire competition's about 4 days long. So from Wednesday to Friday, we're playing matches to essentially decide how we'd be seeded for the elimination round. And that last day, Saturday, is when we play elimination. So that's 2-on-2 matches where it's double elimination, and the winner of the entire competition has won all their matches.
Okay, so then my final question for Ainsley is, are there multiple winners for Worlds, or is it just one team that wins the whole tournament?
Yeah, so in the elimination rounds, we compete in alliances of 3, so the alliance that wins is 3 teams.
Okay. Well, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you for coming on. CDN News will be right back.
I am Mr. Floating, and I teach Photography 1 this semester and Graphic Design 1, 2, and 3. Early life, I was born in the city, spent like 5-6 years in the city, then we grew up in the western suburbs, moved up to the northern suburbs for a while, but Chicago born and raised. Went to college back in Chicago, lived in the city again for another 10 years, and then moved back out to the suburbs. High school was Forest View High School. That closed the year after I graduated. Now it's part of Roosevelt's teaching, and that's at Mount Prospect. And then university, I went to Loyola University, where I got my undergraduate in theater. My first career was as a lighting designer. And then I went to Trinity to get my teacher certification. So my first career was as a lighting designer, very short-lived career as a freelance designer in the city. And then I was also into photography. The photography took off a lot quicker than theater was, so that's where I put the focus on. And I have a photography studio in Northbrook where we do social events and corporate events. I've owned that company now for 21 years next month. And when I was in my 30s, I went back and got a second degree in education, but never taught. I worked with 2 high schools in their theater with their lighting program, but Carmel was my first full teaching job. So it only took me 25 years after getting my degree to get a job. So when I was in college and working on my lighting degree, I was working with a local high school and teaching their kids, or I was doing the designs and then teaching the kids how to do the design. And I just really loved working with the kids and teaching that to them. That was my junior year. I graduated before I finished adding on the teacher degree. And then I purposely waited to get the teaching degree because at 21 years old, I didn't feel I was ready to teach. I wasn't feeling the separation between me and the students. So I held off on the teaching, and then when I was 30, I went and got a second degree. My freshman year of high school, I was at Antioch High School and got involved in the theater department a little bit. I was a little bit of a troublemaker, During my sophomore year, we moved, and I took that opportunity to say I don't want to be a troublemaker anymore, and just got really involved in the arts. And ever since then, I've just been, in love with the arts. I love theater, so that's why that was my concentration. I've always been into photography since high school. That was a minor in college. But yeah, it was early on in high school when I needed to find a new direction from being a troublemaker, and the arts just called me, and I just put all my energy in there.
Did you think that you'd have a career in photography?
When I was in college, no. I was, like I said, I was working as a freelance lighting designer, and I started taking photography work to pay the bills. It was a minor in college because I've just always loved photography. Ever since high school, I was really involved in photography as well. And I minored in photography, and I'm partially so I can photograph my own work as a lighting designer. And then when I had to actually work in order to feed myself as a starving artist, I was working as a photographer. And then photography just took off. So I have a friend, Mr. Moses, who teaches here. And last semester, the photography teacher was out, and he said, hey, they're 6 weeks into the semester, they don't have a teacher yet. So I came in and talked to him and said, I have an operating company, I could make it work, but we have to have a little scheduling talk. And we made it work, and I loved it. And so this semester, when they said, hey, we have a need again, I said, I'm in.
Do you have any major life regrets?
Well, there's a couple we don't have to talk about, but no, major life regrets. Yeah, I'm not gonna tell you about it, but there was a high school prank that we did once, and we got caught. Wasn't happy about that, but no, otherwise there's no really life regrets.
For all the people who haven't yet worked out where they want to go with their life, do you have any advice?
So I heard a quote many years ago, which I absolutely love. And it's when everybody's like, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? I've started asking people, who do you want to be when you grow up? Because what you're going to be like, if you look at the statistics on kids, what their majors are in college, and they're working in their majors, it's not that great. You're going to change direction in life many times. So I've always been more concerned with who do you want to be in life? Because whatever you end up doing, who you are as a person is going to translate into that. But stop asking people what they want to be and ask them who they want to be. And what you want to be is going to happen. If you asked me in high school if I'd be a teacher, I just said absolutely not. Have a goal, don't get me wrong.
Yikes. Wow.
Welcome back. I'm Gabby Malley with announcements. All service hours must be completed and logged in MobileServe by next week. Welcome back. I'm Gabby Malley with announcements. All service hours must be completed and logged in MobileServe by next week, May 1st, 2025. Please ensure you have a clear plan to finish your service hours on time. If you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to contact Ms. Courager. Camp Barnabas signups are now full, so the summer mission trip to Camp Barnabas, all signups are now full. Lastly this morning, next Wednesday, April 30th, is a regular Mass B-Day. The calendar has this listed as B4 or a late start B-Day, but has been changed to a regular Mass B-Day. Prom invitations and t-shirts must be picked up from the bookstore by May 5th, 2025. The bookstore is open until noon every day, so make sure to stop by. Lastly this morning, sorry about that, the jazz and percussion concert is tonight at 7 p.m. in the auditorium. Come and support Carmel's bands. That's all we have for announcements. I'm Gabby Malley. Have a thoughtful Thursday, Carmel.